In this video, I try and survive 100 days in one of Minecraft's craziest worlds. In this world, everything is shaped as noodles, even the nether. This challenge was extremely difficult with harsh terrain, scarce food, and epic battles. I ended up getting a bunch of things done in these 100 days, so join me on my amazing adventure, and also be sure to subscribe as it helps my channel a bunch and brings new content to you. So, without further ado, let's get right into this amazing adventure. Alright, starting day 1, as you can see if you look around you, you find that everything is shaped as these weird tubes. But like any day 1, let's start by chopping down this tree. And it wasn't too long until I found something pretty cool. It was a pink sheep. These things only have a 1.64% spawn rate, so you know I just had to capture it. So I quickly dug a hole to put him inside. I think I thought of a pretty good name for him. I think it's gonna be Philip. So Philip happily hopped inside his hole, and now he's so happy in his new home. So back to the survival series, I made a crafting table and then crafted a pickaxe. I then mined it to the ground to get some cobble to instantly upgrade to stone tools because wooden ones are practically useless beyond that point. I then killed some sheep, mined some wood, and found a pretty neat area for where I was gonna put my base.
It was perfect.
I then crafted a shovel real quick and started mining out an area to put my house down. Well, that concludes the first day, so I walked back to Philip's hole, made a bed, and slept to avoid any danger at night. Day 2, I collected a bunch of wood for building and continued carving out a hole to put my house down. Once I completed the hole, I started placing down the first blocks of my house. If you watch through the entire video, you'll come to find that I'm a very bad builder, so please don't judge me at all. I was planning on adding a second floor already, so I slapped these 2 staircases down on each side. I was also sure to fill in the back wall. The next thing I did was elevate the walls on the second floor, and I also cooked up some food because I was starving. After that, I placed some chests down to clear my inventory because it was completely full of dirt. Anyways, I went right back to mining more wood for my house, and before I knew it, it became nighttime. Arriving home, I discovered that my house was being guarded by a couple mobs, so like any pro player would, I tucked myself into a ground and stayed there until morning. Day 5, and I climbed out of my hole and removed the remaining mobs around my base. I then went to building the roof of my house, because what's a house without a roof, right? Well, I didn't have enough blocks for the roof, so instead I went mining for iron. You have to keep in mind this is on a giant cliff. I could have fallen to my death at any second. Luckily though, in the distance I saw a village, so we'll go check that out after I get this iron. Well, making my way down, I ran into this creeper and decided I wasn't ready to take on the village, so I built right back up to my base. Day 6, I started mining for a ton of iron. While I was mining, a zombie attacked me. I have to remember that mobs spawn almost everywhere in this world. After that, I grabbed Philip and led him back to our base because he's literally the best sheep ever. I put Philip under the stairs for now, but I have plans for him later as he's going to become the king of all sheep. After that, I used my newly smelted iron to craft a full set of gear. I then led these chickens back to my base because I was going to turn them into an automatic chicken farm later in the video. I then finally finished the roof of my house. My next activity was to tear up all this dirt because I was adding some new wood floors. I filled in both the first and second floor. It was finally time to face the village. These tubes create a bunch of shadows which hold lots of mobs, and they almost killed me while I was making my way down. I had absolutely no food, so I was forced to eat this rotten flesh to heal up. I then grabbed the hay bales outside of my house, which I totally should have grabbed first. I'm just thinking of that now. I then discovered water. This was super important because it would create an easy way for me to travel downwards in this new world. So I scooped up the finest bucket of water and took it back up to my base. I placed my bucket of water and then made my way back down to grab a second bucket because I was going to make an infinite water source, which was being guarded by this creeper. Finally, I had an infinite water source. I then went straight to making a little waterfall so I could travel down to start mining. While traveling down, you get a good idea of what all this terrain looks like. I think I forgot to mention that the floor of this entire world is covered in lava. Here's one thing you can't do in the nether, is place down water buckets. This made travel so much easier when mining. So I began exploring the lower level and started to find a lot of diamonds because they would just pop out on the side of these mountains and make it super easy to find. So for the next couple days, specifically 9 through 16, I went around mining collecting each armor set like Thanos collecting the Infinity Stones. I of course crafted my first diamond pickaxe, which I actually got an insane enchantment for later in the video, so stay tuned. During my journeys, I found this mine shaft, so I decided to go check it out. I then ran into a few skeletons, but I took them out easily. The mine shaft didn't really have anything interesting, so I went back to mining. Well, back to mining, where I found enough to make my first set of diamond armor. I had to be super careful when mining because everything was surrounded in lava and I didn't want to lose any diamonds. Well, here's my second piece of armor, the leggings. Then I got the boots. And of course, you can't forget the helmet. After I was done mining, I made my way back up to my base. I did it using the giant waterfall we created to get down. My base doesn't look too completed yet, but trust me, it'll get there by the end of the video. With my newly collected diamonds and obsidian, I made my first nether portal. So I lit it up and traveled in. Well, this was going to be a lot harder than I thought. The portal is legit floating in the middle of nowhere. So for safety, I made a quick outline around my portal so I wouldn't fall off. After getting a decent enough platform down, I made a staircase up to the ground floor. I also made railings because I really didn't want to fall off. Right off the bat, I was already attacked by a piglin. That helped me remind that I needed to go get some gold before I traveled this universe. With that being said, I made my way back home to mine some gold real quickly so I could get a helmet to avoid these piglins from attacking me. Now, piglins couldn't attack me, so I made my way back to the portal. Once in the nether, I began exploring to find a fortress because I needed some blaze rods. Traveling around was super scary because I could have fallen off at like any moment. I found some piglins which I bartered a bit of gold for to get this nice potion of fire resistance. After that, I went back to exploring. I ran into this hoglin, which I took out immediately because it could provide some good food. I had a little assistance taking out the second one, but then this piglin robbed me of some of the food. I then cooked up all the food I collected and went back to exploring. After a little while, I finally found the nether fortress. So I built my way over and decided to check it out. I then started taking out the local blazes. Whilst doing so, I found this chest which contained a few diamonds. As you can see, I was struggling to find a place to put them because my inventory was filling up so fast. During my adventures, I nearly died because this wither knocked me off my platform and almost killed me. After that near-death experience, I decided to head out and find some food because I needed health so badly and I had no hunger. Looking around, I saw my only option was really to make some mushroom stew because there were no piglins around to get food from them. So I crafted up my first bowl and continued exploring to find some more red mushrooms. Eventually I found the motherload of red mushrooms, so I collected them all up, made some more mushroom stew, and made my way back to the nether fortress to collect more blaze rods. Coming back to the fortress, you could already see all the wither skeletons just waiting for me. But we weren't worried about them. We were after some blaze rods. Approaching the blaze spawner, I took out some of the wither skeletons in the surrounding area, and then I went straight after the blazes to get their juicy rods. During my battles, a blaze hit me. I almost fell down into the lava through the tiny crack. While standing there burning, I decided to take a fire resistant potion so I could take out these blazes 10 times more easier than ever. Because the attacks are mostly fire, as long as I kept the distance from these blazes, I really couldn't get hurt. While battling, I got third-partied by these wither skeletons and they almost took me out, so I had to heal up again. I had to be uber careful while fighting these blazes because sometimes the rods would just fall off the edge and I couldn't get them anymore. I had some pretty good luck while taking out these blazes, so once I collected my 8 rods that I needed, I decided to head out. Unfortunately, on my way back to the portal, I found out that I had no idea where I was, and I kinda got lost for a little bit. In fact, I was so lost that I got this achievement. That's super hard to do within your 100 days. After what seems like ages, I finally found my portal to return home. Coming back on day 25, I decided to make an automatic chicken farm because I needed much more food than what I already had.
I'm hungry!
In a minute! This was a pretty simple design, so it didn't really take too long, but I'll link the credits to whose farm I used. I then decided to replace the sad farm I had from before with a much bigger area, so I carved out a wall in this mountain and started planning away. After that, I decided to do some more exploring, which, keep in mind, is super scary because I could have fallen to my death at any second. During my journey, I ran into these pigs, which I chopped up for some nice food. It then became nighttime, where I had this near-death experience because I was getting jumped by so many different creatures. I skillfully dodged this creeper explosion, but all these monsters were still coming after me one by one. Thankfully, I managed to take all of them out. Like, why does hardcore Minecraft have to be this difficult? It's crazy. Back to my adventures and daytime, thank God. I found a shipwreck above water because technically I was in an ocean biome, but water doesn't really exist in this world, so it'll just spawn anywhere. I then found another above water ocean structure, which I gladly looted and found a treasure map. So I decided to follow the map, bridging my way through all these noodles. Whilst trying to find the chest, I found sand. This is so important because it means I can finally finish my house. When looking for the chest, I saw the natural spawn, so I was able to spot it really easily. When hopping down to collect my loot, I was attacked by these monsters lurking in the dark. But after looking in the chest, I knew I had to get it. I didn't actually have to fight that much because all the mobs ended up floating down the river that I placed from before. I then collected my juicy rewards from the chest, which had so much gold in it. After that, I started to collect tons of sand. I needed this resource so bad because I legit have no windows in my house. Back to exploring, where I found another sunken ship with a fancy little clock inside of it. On my journey, I found a dog, which I used my bones to tame. He was my best friend ever, and his name is going to be Clyde. And he will have a wife. Yes, a wifey dog named Tulip. And then they will have a kid. Yup, a very special kid. But it didn't really last very long. After a missed swing, Clyde was sent off the edge, unfortunately, and the other ones went shortly after too. Such a traumatic day. After such a tragic day, I decided to call it and head back home, going down to the underground caves. Water bridging my way under the surface, I discovered one of my old mining paths that led me straight home. I finally arrived home on day 30, which I was so happy about. It took so long. The first thing I did was throw our newly collected sand in the smelter so I could finally add windows onto my house. After that, I cleared my inventory and grabbed a bunch of blocks to go explore the nether. Keep in mind, I can't water bridge in the nether, so I'll have to be super careful about traveling. I was sweating bullets the entire time. These tubes made it so difficult for me to traverse. I found my way all the way down to the floor level, where I found something interesting, something in the distance. Upon closer inspections, it seems as though I found another nether fortress. But not soon after, I found a bastion. Although very dangerous, this could provide some much needed loot. So I carefully snuck up and mined my way inside. This was super scary. Some of the strongest mobs live in a bastion. I already see the massive amounts of gold in the center, and I could only imagine what could be in the chest, so I carefully descended my way down to collect it. With my height advantage, I decided to take out the piglin brutes that were in my way. This magma cube spawner started to cause a lot of problems for me. It got to the point where I was taking so much damage and got so close to dying. So I blocked myself in and started taking all of them out. After that, I made my way to the center, where the first thing I did was mine out the spawner. With the spawner gone, I was finally able to stop them once and for all. With the slimes out of my way, I was finally able to mine out the gold blocks. Victory was mine. I then hastily mined all the gold blocks. Looking in the chest, my rewards were quite bountiful, but besides no netherite, I ended up getting tons of gold and diamonds. As you can probably hear, the piglins weren't too happy about me taking their gold. In fact, this piglin brute was there for one final stand, getting a few decent hits on me. After finally getting out, I decided to barter with the local piglins. I ended up trading most of the gold I got from the bastion, but besides getting only 5 ender pearls, I was able to obtain a bunch of spectral arrows. So, using the obsidian I got from the trades, I built a nether portal home. I was out in the middle of nowhere again, back in the overworld, but it wasn't too long until I made another idiot mistake. While traveling down my water trail, I descended too fast and almost died from fall damage. So I quickly ran to safety where I regained some of my health. I then started to head back to my base, but before that I made a cool marker so I knew what path this was. It's day 42 and I crafted some bread real quick to get my hunger up. I then crafted some eyes of ender because I was gonna go find the portal soon. But not for the dragon, not yet. I was going for bookshelves. There's no sugarcane in this world that could spawn naturally, so this was essential for getting some good enchantments. Before we go though, I filled in almost my entire house with glass, except for one small bit. I then made this small auto fish farm so I could get some steady flow of food. So for the next couple days, I sat there fishing so I could get a ton of fish to eat. After I got what seemed like a good amount of fish, I journeyed down to the lava floor to finally find the portal. This journey was so tedious as I would throw a pearl and have to bridge every couple chunks and check if I was going the right direction. Whilst doing this, I realized I needed to be a bit more careful as the pearls would just fall into the lava every so often. After a few days, I finally found the end portal. It was super confusing to find because I didn't know what noodle this was hiding in. I'm finally inside, and it wasn't long after until I found the library where I grabbed as many bookshelves as I needed. After that, I found the portal, which was being guarded by a bunch of silverfish. I think this was the first time I actually was challenged by them in this game because they were so annoying to deal with. It got so out of hand that I just placed down my water bucket and decided to incinerate all of them with lava. Once they were all gone, I mined an exit out of the portal room and headed back home to enchant all of my gear. I was so happy to finally have some books. It's hard to believe, but I haven't even been able to craft an enchantment table yet, so this was a big upgrade for me. So when I got back, I took a quick nap and finally made my first enchantment table. I then turned the rest of my books into bookshelves so I could have better enchants. After that, I dug a small area and started placing down everything I just made. Right off the bat, I got Fortune 3 as an option, so I decided to take it. What I didn't know was it gave me maybe the best pickaxe enchant I could ever get. The next thing I enchanted was my chest plate. This also gave me really good enchantments. The next thing I did was fill in a small hole in the windows that I missed from before. After that, I went to grab a horse because I was planning on finding a village with villagers inside it to trade with. But not that one. Unfortunately, I didn't end up using the horse because the terrain of this world was just too steep for me to make it anywhere. On my journey, I collected as much food as I possibly could, killing cows and sheep along the way. It was so annoying traveling through all these winding paths because walking through them took so much longer to travel for far distances. So after I collected a bit more food and watched the sunset on day 50, I ended up spotting a small path on the ground. After closer inspection, I found out that there was a village somewhere below my feet. I just pray that there are villagers still in there. So using my water bucket to descend, I caught my first glimpse at the village. Soon after, I finally found a villager that I could trade with. After looking in the chest and finding a bit more food, I trapped a villager in a boat to make a trading stand with. So after setting up the most simplistic stand, I got right to the grind to find that juicy mending book for my tools. During my times of trying to find mending, this stupid baby villager was always getting in my way. It was getting so annoying. This little guy would always stand in my way where I was going to place my blocks, and overall he was just being a giant pain in my butt. After a good amount of time, I finally acquired the mending book. For 37 emeralds, that's a giant ripoff. I definitely didn't have that many to spare. Thankfully though, this other villager decided to be a bit nicer. After only a few tries, I managed to get a mending book for only 13 emeralds. After that lucky snag, I decided to head back home for more emeralds, though I ended up getting sidetracked and don't really return until later in the video. When I got home, I decided to spice up my living area a little bit, so I chopped down a few trees and decided to make a fancy sheep farm. So sit back and relax as you enjoy a tiny montage of my terrible building. The next thing on my list is to expand my farm a little bit. After that, I decided to make my house a little bit larger by adding a basement to store all my stuff in. Well, here's the final product. It's looking pretty nice. I might even add some stone floors later on. After taking out a few blazes, the unexpected happened. I ran into a horde of wither skeletons. Instantly, they all started rushing me, and it wasn't too long until they got a few good hits on me. I was trying my best to take them all out without getting hit. By the end of it all, I was left with 2.5 hearts withering away. I had to eat food fast. Thankfully, I survived, hoping nothing else would come down those stairs. I made my way up and started taking out the local mobs. I also got some goodies for later in the video. But my luck wasn't back yet. While trying to take out some blazes, one hit me from behind, knocking me into the lava. Thankfully, I always keep a fire resistant potion with me, so I was able to clutch up and survive. That could have almost ended my entire video. After calming down and building out of the lava, I made my way to the closest tube. After almost dying, I realized I had enough and hurried back to my portal to go back home. I managed to collect 2 more wither skeletons to complete the entire set, but now it was time to focus up because I was going to beat the dragon. The first thing I did was work on my sword. It was about time I got an upgrade. I managed to pull looting 3 on it, but I wanted it to be even better. So I made my way to the village, devastated to find out that my mending villager somehow changed trades. I then cycled him until I found a sharpness 4 for really cheap. I decided to take the trade and I ran back to my base to apply it on the sword. I also repaired it a little bit. The next thing I did was real quickly touch up my house by adding some nice stone slabs to the entire floor. Once I was done, I grabbed the most resources necessary for my journey into the end. Before I left, I made sure to stop by Philip to wish him goodbye and good luck, and then jump down to the lava floor to start my trip to the portal. Once I arrived, I filled in the empty portal frames with the eyes of Ender that I had and prepared to jump in. Well, here we are. Once inside, the first thing I did was mine my way to the surface. I made sure that my boat was in my hotbar to stop the Enderman from attacking me while I dealt with the dragon. Once I reached the top, I realized that the end was normal, no tubes or anything. This was a big relief because fighting him on those tubes would have been a huge struggle. Right off the bat, when I was trying to take out the first tower, an Enderman had already locked onto me. Thankfully, I had my boat ready to stop his attacks. After getting rid of him and getting a nice amount of ender pearls, I got right back to taking out the towers to cut off healing from the dragon. While trying to take out the towers, I was getting fired upon, but due to my immense skill, I was able to hit a lot of them first try. I was able to take out the protected crystals pretty easily, but the last one I had to build up to take out. While doing this, the dragon managed to hit the tower I built on, so I made my quick descent down so I wouldn't die. After finally managing to destroy the last crystal, it was time for me to target the dragon itself. While it perched up, I saw a key opportunity to hit the dragon up close with my powerful sword. And I managed to get a few hits off before I was sent flying. With quick reflexes, I used my ender pearl to stop the fall, but I wasn't safe yet. Once I landed, I was instantly attacked by another enderman. So I quickly placed down a water bucket to ensure my safety. After taking him out, I saw the dragon perching again, so I went to deal more damage. And it wasn't soon after until I was sent flying into the sky again. So after another quick ender pearl recovery, I went straight back to the battle. After healing up a little bit, I managed to get a couple good hits with my bow while it was still flying around. And once again, I was attacked by another enderman, so I quickly placed down my water and trapped him in a boat to kill him. After seeing the dragon land again, I started swinging my last couple hits. Like always, I went soaring into the air, and before I could ender pearl, I hit one of the towers, dealing heavy fall damage to me. So after healing up again, I relied on my bow to get the last final hits in. There was only one shot left, and I decided to end it in style by hitting a nice 360 shot to finally defeat the dragon. Once I freed the end, I saw my rewards, and oh boy did I get a lot of XP. I was definitely going to use this for more enchants on my gear. It was now time to find an elytra. I was so excited to be able to fly around in my world, but before I did that, I quickly grabbed the dragon's egg. Before I build up to the end city portal, I decided to collect a few more ender pearls. I made a quick roof for myself so I wouldn't be hit and started calling over all the endermen around me. And with my looting 3 sword, I managed to get all the pearls I needed super quickly. So I built up and headed in. Traveling around, I had to be more careful, because after my very first throw, I almost sent myself off the edge. After a little more traveling, I managed to find the end city, which thankfully had an elytra boat with it. I decided I was gonna go and try and tackle the end city, and it wasn't easy, but I managed to get some pretty good gear from some of the chests. I managed to use the shulkers to my advantage as they floated me to the ship. After taking out the one shulker guarding my prize, I was finally able to claim the elytra. I then decided to collect the dragon head as a nice decoration and started to make my way back home. While heading back, I had such a close call and almost fell into the void. But alas, I found my way home, traveling back to the end, and hopped in the portal to head back home. I got back on day 76, and once I was home, I happily greeted Philip as I finally beat the dragon. But that wasn't the end, because I was still going to defeat 2 other bosses in this video. With my newly acquired XP, I decided to do some enchanting. The first thing I enchanted was my bow, and it didn't disappoint as the Flame 1 enchantment ended up being Power 4 and Unbreaking 3. The next thing I enchanted was my helmet and boots, getting both Unbreaking and Protection 3 on them. I then upgraded my axe real quickly and combined some bows to get power 5 on it. This was going to be an unstoppable weapon. Lastly, I used my last experience to combine my boots to get protection 4 on them. Once I was done, I headed over to my sheep farm because I was going to need a lot of beds. Why, you may ask? Because I was on the search for some netherite. Unfortunately, after using all of my beds, I wasn't able to find even one bit of netherite, but I was able to find another bastion. So I snuck my way down from the top and took out some of the guards. They were a lot more planned out though, as 2 of them snuck up from behind me, forcing me to deal with them. With their immense damage, even my gear couldn't handle them, bringing me down to almost 3 hearts. To heal up, I quickly popped an insta-heal and made my way down to the loot room where I found a bit of obsidian. And while taking out these guards, I accidentally activated the zombie pigmen, which would lead to a lot of trouble. Soon after, they all started to rush me, and I was forced to take out the entire crowd of them. After dealing with them, I mined the gold found around the bastion and looted another chest, but the zombie pigmen found me once again. I was soon being swarmed, and after trying to deal with them, they started doing tons of damage to me, so I had to run away. Left with only 1 heart left, I ran to get high ground, where I quickly healed up and took out the remaining mobs. After taking them all out, I made it to the center where I was able to acquire tons of gold blocks. After I made it out of the bastion, I decided to try and look for more netherite, but after falling in lava, I was forced to pop my god apple and ended up just going back home. Once I was back home, I had lots to prepare for, but before that, I decided to upgrade and rename my diamond sword. After that, I collected a bunch of wood to add a nice chest room in the basement of my house. After that, I decided to upgrade my fish farm a little bit. What I didn't know is that I made a farm that only worked for the bedrock edition, so that was a little bit of a waste of time. The next thing I did was slap efficiency 5 on my pickaxe to get maximum efficiency. I was now ready to face the wither, so I grabbed the heads on display and mined a quick hole down into the mines. And after a quick rest, it was time for me to face it. I threw the 3 heads on and summoned the boss. I quickly realized that I was too close in range of the thing, so I mined a tunnel behind me to get some distance. Once I was far enough, I started dealing heavy damage with my powerful bow. After defeating the boss, I claimed the star. I was gonna then make a beacon after this. I then discovered I was running dry on sand. This was a perfect opportunity for me to throw on my elytra and take it for a spin in the new world. After flying around, I found a sunken ship hanging off one of the tubes, so I quickly dropped by to loot the chest. Not soon after, I found what I needed, so I grabbed a few blocks and flew my way back home. The next day, I crafted a beacon, and I decided I was going to use the gold that I got from the bastion to power the entire thing. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough to finish the entire thing, so what I did was I went into the nether and collected the last bits of gold that I needed for it. After that, I rushed back home to finally complete my beacon. There we have it, a fully complete beacon, though I still had to add a nice power up to it. And I decided to choose a speed boost as my beacon power up for right now. The next thing I did was fill up some glass bottles because I was still on the hunt to defeat one more boss. If you can't already tell by the postings I made, just wait to find out which boss I fight next. Before I fight it though, I think it's time for a nice upgrade to Philip's home. With a few extra blocks of gold I had and some of his favorite food, I was gonna make a cool throne for Philip to sit on above my sheep farm. So after I completed the throne, I led Philip to his new home. I don't know about you guys, but Philip now has the perfect throne to be king of all sheep. Now that I'm done with that, it was time to defeat the last boss of all my 100 days. the Elder Guardian. While I was mining diamonds earlier in the video, I came across this ocean monument, so I knew I had to try to defeat it once I had better gear. So I drank up my potions of water breathing and started my swim in. This was my very first time trying an ocean monument, and it was a lot harder than it looks. I was getting laser beamed by so many mobs that I had to retreat real quickly to heal up my health. I then made a mad dash to the entrance, which was completely closed off for some reason. So while trying to avoid getting caught in a beam, I tried my very hardest to get into the structure. Once inside it, it was a lot easier, and it wasn't long until I found the boss himself. So by using my insanely good sword, I was able to take out the Elder Guardian super easily. So I collected my sponge and dipped home. What you didn't see was I tried to get the gold in the treasure room, but with mining fatigue, it was near impossible, so I thought I would save that for a different day. It was day 99, the last day, so I thought for the rest of the day I would do a quick tour of all the things that we accomplished together. I was so proud to be done with this challenge, but I realized there was still so much to do. Heck, I don't even have any bits of netherite yet. It was so beautiful traveling around all these tubes all the time. It provided a decent amount of challenge to the game without ruining the true vanilla experience. Well, it's day 100. I finally made it. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video because it took months for me to make. I'm a very slow editor. This is also my very first original video, so any reviews would be so appreciated. So, without further ado, don't forget to subscribe. Plix out.